Dave Dugan is the SNP MP for Angus and joins us live on the network right now. Mr Dugan, morning.
Morning. It's Angus and Perthshire Glens now following the boundary review.
Oh, I beg your pardon. An incomplete description of your constituency. I will make corrections. You lost the vote on your amendment, but do you think the moment itself will have longer consequences?
Yes, I do, and we may have lost the vote, which to some extent was inevitable, but sometimes in Parliament you've got to take a stand, and I think we've won the argument despite losing that vote. We were supported last night in that amendment to the King's Speech by many parties in Parliament, and it's a shame that the architects of austerity and the Tories and now the sponsors of austerity, the Labour Party, weren't able to support what is clearly the right thing to do by communities up and down these islands.
It might be the right thing to do, but how were you planning to pay for it? Or what argument would you make of how it would be affordable?
Well, indeed, and so it would cost just over £3.5 billion recurring annually.
Sure.
And that
so
is
what are you not going to do that costs £3 billion now that you would allocate to that resource instead?
Well, so what I was going to say is £3.5 billion is comfortably within the margins of tolerance within UK government finances. We're talking about an economy that's £1 trillion in debt, and it's not fair that children living in poverty in these islands are responsible for bearing the burden of that, because it's important to unpack what Labour are saying. If they're saying it's unaffordable to scrap the two-child cap at this time, they're saying by converse then that it is affordable that families up and down the land pay for the effects of poverty rather than the state, and that is not just. So £3.5 billion is an awful lot of money, but not to an economy the size of the UK. And Rachel Reeves has been very clear that she's intending to yield on the junior doctor's pay deal, which is a similar amount of recurring cost per annum. And so if she can yield on that, she can yield on lifting 27,000 affected households in Scotland and 1.6 million across the UK out of poverty. In my constituency of Angus and Perthshire Glens alone, 400 households are affected by this poverty and significantly negatively affected. So it's completely unjust.
It's the best part of a penny on income tax, isn't it? That would raise about $5 billion, I think, on the latest maths, although the new Chancellor is just doing the sums.
It's important. You need to pay cognizance. Of course you do, if you're going to be fiscally responsible, to the input costs of that. But also the government, any serious new Chancellor, needs to take cognizance of the opportunity costs as well. And keeping children in poverty and limiting their life chances has got significant impacts for the economy going forward. This is not an investment in communities. It detracts from the capital that exists within communities. And we need to change our perspective on this. We need to recognise that a lot of the families, 75% actually, of the families affected by this negative impact of the UK government, they're in work. These are people trying to get by, trying to do the right thing by their communities and their families, but still find themselves, because of the macroeconomic situation within the UK, they still find that they go out to work all week and still live in poverty. And where's the state when it comes to helping them? Well, if they've had more than 2 children, the state's nowhere.
I wonder if your party would set an example, because you could make up the difference by implementing that at local level in Scotland, couldn't you? Is that something?
We could in theory.
Well, are you going to do it?
Yeah, sure, we could in theory do that, but we already spend £140 million mitigating the costs of austerity over the last 14 years with the Tories in power. We can't continue to do that. The Scottish Government is fixed and budget is fixed and contained. So that £140 million that the SNP in Edinburgh have managed to protect communities in Scotland with, that's money that should be getting invested in roads, in the environment, in agriculture, in education and health. And whilst we have record funding in health in Scotland, much higher than in England, it still comes at a cost. So we can't mitigate everything that comes from Westminster. It's not our responsibility. Welfare of this nature is the responsibility of the UK government. And voters in Scotland who've just returned a great number of Scottish MPs who stood on their doorstep and barefaced said that the two-child cap was wrong and that it should go, all marched into the lobby with the government last night to make sure that the two-child cap stays.
Dave Dugan, thank you very much indeed for speaking to us today on that particular issue.